Hey y'all, how y'all doing today? This is Pambella with Real Talk. Why did I? My series 2 has started and we're going into chapter 4, the drug abuser. Now, as I got up the next morning, we were getting dressed and he was getting ready to take me down to the bus station. As I can remember, we got out of the car. We waited for the bus station for a moment. He wanted to, I guess, smoke a cigarette or something, I guess. But anyway, as the bus came up, he came and gave me a hug. I got on the bus and we parted our ways. Now, to fast forward just a little bit, I made it back home safely. I went to work. I continued my life and did, what I needed to do for my kids. But we still talked. We kept with communication. We laughed over the phone. But, I still have questions on what was going on with him with my first visit. But, here I go, being young and dumb. But anyway, we talked, and then we had got on the subject. One day I can remember him asking me about moving to Georgia. And I was like, moving to Georgia? I said, I don't know about all that there, And that was at the time when my mom was alive, My mom been gone for like 11 years now. She died from sickle cell, but that's on another topic. But when she was here, she was able to meet him and everything. And she kind of liked him and everything, but I don't know. We'll get to that. But he was asking me about coming to move up there, and I was like, I don't know, I got my kids, but my daughter always stayed with her grandma all the time. They came and got her all the time. And then my son, he was with me, and then sometimes he would be at my daddy's house. But I was like, okay. So I thought about it long and hard. We talked for weeks and stuff about it. So I was like, you know what, why don't you move down here? And then I was like, oh, okay, what have I done? But anyway, I asked him, and I was like, why don't you move down here with me and then give it a try down here in Florida? Because you ain't never left Georgia. You stay in Macon. Like, I don't know. The little town up there is kind of small. Like it ain't much to do. So I was like, why don't you come to Florida? And, I was like, you can like stay down here for like a couple weeks or, to see if you like it. And if you don't, they can go back. So he ended up coming. And as I can remember, he came on down. Y'all, yeah, we moved quick. I went on here, moved quick, being stupid again. But he came on down. We ended up moving in a place that my dad had. And it was just me and him there. And as he moved in and everything was going good. He ended up finding a job. My mom was helping out, taking him to work or taking me to work or something like that, and we got it done. But then it came to a point to where he wanted to start drinking. And I was like, okay, this nigga, he drinking too much. So he drinking and he drinking and he drinking. And I'm like, why is this man drinking so much? Like, why is he drinking so much? So he drinking, he getting mad. He wanted to argue with me a little bit. And I'm like, oh, Lord, what I got myself into? So with that being said, I can remember one night me and him got in an argument. He had been here like maybe 3 weeks. He hadn't been there like 3 weeks. And we got in an argument. We was inside of the spot that we had, and I can remember us yelling and screaming and hollering and everything. And I was down in the woods. Nobody couldn't see me. Nobody couldn't hear me. It wasn't really no light posters outside or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay. So we arguing. I end up going outside because I ain't want to hear the crap no more. Why this fool locked me out the door, y'all? I'm down here in the bushes now. Ain't no light. Ain't nothing outside. All you hear is the woods, and whatever out there in the woods. So I'm out there beating on the door, beating on the door, beating on the door. He still ain't opening the door. How you gonna lock me out my shit? So anyway, I'm banging on the door. I'm banging on the door. Next thing you know, I hear music playing. He playing that damn Sir Charles. He got it turned up. I'm talking about it's turned up wide open, y'all. And I'm steady banging on the door, trying to get in this place because I'm outside. Like, I'm scary as hell. Like, I didn't know what was out there in the woods. But anyway, he finally opened the door. I went inside. I was crying a little bit. And I took a shower and I got in the bed. We woke up the next day. I ain't really say nothing to him. My mama called. She was like, she finna go to breakfast. Y'all want to go to breakfast? He was like, no, y'all can go to breakfast. I don't want to go. So I ended up going with my mom and I was telling her what was going on. She was like, see, I told you. I said, you moving too fast. These are things that my mom told me before she passed. She's like, you moving too fast. You got this man down here. Now y'all going through it. Now you can't get him up from down here. So we arguing. Me and him started arguing again one time. And then I told my mom again. So I started going to church with her. He came to church one time. And when the time that he did come, my mom was up there singing in that pulpit. Y'all, she was up there where the choir was. And she was just looking down on him. And I swear, by the time we got home, when we got out the car, she told me, she held me back. She was like, you know what? You done brought the devil down here. I said, the devil? She said, yeah, I seen him sitting out there in the audience when I was singing. I said, who? She talking about that man you got in that house. I said, oh, Lord. I said, don't tell me nothing like that there. So I'm like, okay, Mom, okay. Hug her, kiss her, bye, and go inside. So now my mind going 100 miles per hour. I'm trying to figure out what I done got myself into, and I'm praying to God to release me from this already. So I'll say about maybe, he stayed down about 3 or 4 months, y'all. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because, like I said, he wasn't that bad, but he was a drug abuser. You feel what I'm saying? He was a drug abuser. But let's get back into it. So 3 or 4 months passed by. We arguing still. So he ended up moving back to Georgia. He went back to Georgia, y'all. So when he went back to Georgia, I stayed back maybe a couple months after that. He was still calling me and everything. We were talking and everything. So he ended up asking me to come up there with him. Let me tell y'all something. When I say people can be stupid, people can be stupid. And when I say that, that go for me too. I ended up moving up there. I didn't even tell my mom I was leaving, y'all. I just eased on that bus and hauled ass. I took my son with me, and we went all the way to Georgia. We was all the way up in Macon, Georgia, y'all. Not Macon. We was up in Monroe, Georgia. Monroe, Georgia. We went all the way to Monroe, Georgia. So I ended up moving in the same house that I came to visit the first time, his mama house. Like, you know, ended up moving in. She didn't mind. So I ended up moving in. We moved in. I went back to that same room. My son was there. So we ended up getting him like a blow up bed or something. He like went in the living room. But let me tell y'all something. When I say I be on my sheesh, I be on my sheesh. I got right up there, got me a job real quick, and I got my shit together, and that's just what it is. I ended up moving out the lady house, got my own place, and he ended up coming with me. We ended up getting a 2-bedroom duplex. Now up there, that rent was cheap, y'all. That rent was like $435 for a 2-bedroom duplex. And when I say I ain't lying, I ain't lying. I don't know why the rent was so cheap, because you had to supply your own air conditioner. They didn't have no ventilation. That's why. So the rent was like $435, y'all. I got the apartment. We moved in the apartment. So as we move in the apartment, my son got his own room. I got my room. We got 1 bathroom, a kitchen, living room, everything good. I got furniture, everything going good, y'all. So he there too. He working. But he started hanging out more. He started having like more parties. He liked to play. He old school. He want to play dominoes. He inviting his friends over, especially that one girl I was telling y'all about, his best friend. She started coming over like, how you invite all these people over here? And this my spot. Like, I just moved up here. So I'm trying to, like, you know, just chill, you know, just let it go with the flow. Maybe these some good people, you know, I don't know. Maybe I need to surround myself. So with that being said, I can remember one night he had a get together over there, and he invited his best friend, that girl, and 2 of his homeboys, and we set the tables up. I had got some drinks. We got chips and dip, and we wanted to play spades. That's the only thing I could play. I ain't know how to play no dominoes. I don't know. Only thing I know about dominoes, building them up, knocking them down. You know what I'm saying? Watching them fall down. That was just so exciting to me. But anyway, so I can remember that night when we were all sitting to the table and we was playing. Now his homeboys, mind you, were there, and then the girl was there. You know, I'm sitting there playing cards or whatever, and I'm looking at him, I'm looking at her, but we all sipping. But I could see the type of eye contact they was giving each other. Like, you know, I just didn't like it. You know, it's sad, y'all, but it's not good for a man to have a best friend, a woman as a best friend. That's just not gonna work. That don't go in my book. But anyway, with that being said, I could see the way they were just looking at each other, and she kept getting up, asking every time she got up, she was asking him, do he want to drink? And even asking me, do I want to drink? You know what I'm saying? She was getting up so much, I just stopped getting up. I just stopped getting up, getting the drinks, because she was getting up so much, trying to have all the hospitality, serving all the guys sitting at the table. You go right ahead, honey. I'll fix my own drink, because you might put something in it anyway. But anyway, so she getting up, getting the drinks, getting up, getting the drinks. I'm sitting there watching them. You know, they sitting like, the table was long, so it was me sitting at one end, she was sitting at one end, I was facing her, and then the guys were around the table. You feel what I'm saying? So with that being said, we sitting there, and I see them like eye contacting, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no telling, they probably rubbing feet under the table. But anyway, so I got up and I went in the kitchen, and I stayed in there for a few minutes because I was trying to get my thoughts together. You know, I was taking my time in there. You know, he asked me if it was all right. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. I'll be out in a minute. You know, I said I'm finna get a little bit more stuff to bring out there, chips and dip. But really, I was buying time because I'm in there trying to gather my thoughts to figure out what's going on with this. You feel what I'm saying? But with that being said, y'all, we're gonna go ahead and jump into part 5, and we're gonna get right back to it, y'all. Y'all stay with me.